A major update as an Impact Wrestling champion is set to enter negotiations with the company on an extension to her contract, plus several Impact Wrestling champions are currently without a contract. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling. Now, let's talk about Deonna Purrazzo. Let's talk about Chelsea Green. Let's talk about contracts, because we've seen at the moment, contracts are a really interesting discussion point with Impact Wrestling, because as I've spoken about a million times here on the channel, when I've been talking about Impact Wrestling, when I've been talking about the roster, when I've been talking about champions and big names that currently compete in Impact Wrestling, not all of them actually have signed deals with Impact. They're on handshake basis or they're on a per appearance basis. So it's a really interesting discussion point to get into. Now, this is a big story reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, and it's really interesting here. It says that Impact Wrestling has a bunch of current champions that aren't actually under contract, or the contracts they do have with the company are coming up, and another talent whose contract status is in a bit of a unique situation. So let's get into this. Now, it's been widely reported, we spoke about it here on the channel before, Fightful reported it. I believe Sean Ross Sapp was maybe first to break the story, but as I spoke about at the time, it was really common knowledge. It wasn't a story that needed breaking. Nevertheless, the Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, are committed to work with Impact through at least late August, but they're far from the only champions in the company that have interesting contractual status. Fightful are confirming that Impact Knockouts champion, or Knockouts Tag Team champion rather, Chelsea Green is indeed still a free agent. She has not signed a contract with Impact Wrestling, and she is indeed a free agent. Now, she continues to work for several other promotions as well, which would explain this, such as the NWA, GCW, and several other independent promotions, whilst appearing also on weekly Impact Wrestling television. Now, Green's VXT tag team partner and fellow tag team champion Deonna Purrazzo has a much more unique situation than Chelsea Green, who just doesn't have a contract. We know that Deonna Purrazzo does have a contract with Impact Wrestling, and I did touch on this the other day when I spoke about, I'm not sure what the contractual situation is, because I recalled at the time that she had signed with Impact Wrestling in 2020. Now, when she signed with Impact Wrestling in 2020, it was actually after she won the Knockouts Championship at Slammiversary. It was a long discussion point with her going, I want a contract with Impact, I hope they offer it to me, and she did indeed sign a contract with Impact Wrestling. But I knew that was 2 years ago, and I knew it was a 2-year deal, so I thought to myself, when is this contract expiring? And I'm glad that Sean Ross Sapp has written about this, because he's given some really interesting insight into this situation. So originally, Purrazzo's contract with Impact Wrestling is set to expire at the end of 2022. As a result, Fightful are reporting that Purrazzo and Impact Wrestling are set to actively discuss her future in the company, and more specifically, the 2023 year. Sources familiar with the situation have indicated that Impact believes they hold an option year, but it isn't clear cut. So again, sources familiar with the situation are indicating here that Impact Wrestling believe they hold an option year on Purrazzo's contract, which if that is the case, they would just trigger it and she'd be contracted to the company for another year. But it isn't clear cut whether that option actually exists, or if they can actually hold it, or the circumstances surrounding it. Now, Purrazzo came into Impact Wrestling and worked the first several months actually without a deal, as I mentioned. Even after she had won the Knockouts Championship, she wasn't under contract, which, as I spoke about, isn't much of a surprise, because that's how Impact Wrestling has operated for a long time. They're very loose with the contracts. That's how ultimately they get certain talents to come in, because certain talents, after they've been released by WWE or their contract expired with wherever, they don't really want to sign long-term deals. They want to not be tied down or only sign short-term deals, and it's that flexibility that has allowed Impact Wrestling to sign some big names in recent years. Now, she finally did sign with the company, of course, and Fightful are told that after receiving a raise, there was time added on to her contract. I remember that story at the time. I can't remember when it was, if it was earlier this year or late last year, reporting that Purrazzo had a contract extension. Now, obviously, as part of that extension, she received a substantial raise and time was added on, but we didn't know how much time. That time may have been an extra 6 months or something like that, plus an option year, but Fightful are also reporting that the two sides are supposed to enter negotiations to figure all of this out. That's the situation right there. So It is very complex. The situation when it comes to contracts, if you've watched this, if you watch the channel, is not a revelation whatsoever, because we know Matt Cardona has been involved with Impact Wrestling since Hard to Kill 2021, and he is still involved with Impact Wrestling. Of course, he's injured at the moment. He's doing stuff with the NWA as well. He's still doing stuff with GCW, even whilst he's out with the injury. He was part of the Ric Flair's last match pay-per-view as well. Again, healing up from that torn bicep. He still took a diamond cutter from DDP. The entire time that he's been with Impact Wrestling, he has never, ever, ever been under contract to the company. Never. There are several names that is the same. Alex Shelley, he just competed for the Impact World Championship at Emergence. He is not under contract to Impact Wrestling. There are several names that have never been under contract to Impact Wrestling and have been appearing at their television tapings for a really, really, really long time. So it's no surprise to hear that someone like Chelsea Green is currently not under contract with the company. That doesn't surprise me in the least. The interesting situation is with Deonna Purrazzo, really, isn't it? Because there does seem to be some form of ambiguity as to if Impact Wrestling does hold that extra year. And put it this way, if they were certain about holding that extra year, if they were certain about having that option year on her contract, they wouldn't even really be talking about 2023 with Deonna Purrazzo. They just inform her, hey, obviously you're a huge star in our company. We've built really the Knockouts division around you the last couple of years. You've beaten everyone. You've held every championship on multiple occasions. You held the Ring of Honor World Women's Championship. You held the AAA Women's Championship as well. You're one of, if not the biggest knockout that we have, and certainly the best in ring, in my opinion. They would just say to her, we're exercising the option year. You're sticking around until 2023. They wouldn't be entering negotiations. They wouldn't be going into discussions saying, what have you got planned? Or what have you got planned for me for 2023 going forward? They wouldn't say that. They just wouldn't, without the feeling of maybe we have that optional year, but we're not too sure. Basically, they're trying to set out a roadmap to say to Deonna Purrazzo, this is why you should stay with Impact Wrestling, because I think they realize now with the landscape the way it is, not so much in AEW. I don't see Deonna Purrazzo going to AEW. The women's division there is what it is. For me, they've got fantastic talent, no doubt about that, but the way the women's division is booked is the same as it has been booked since 2019 when the company started. You've got your one women's match per week on Dynamite. They're not in main events of shows that often. They're not main event in pay-per-views, and the audience isn't being conditioned to care. That's the problem. And they can talk about, well, the ratings go down when the females are in the ring. That's because, again, they haven't been given a reason to care, and that's on AEW, to be given a reason to care. The issue when it comes to Deonna Purrazzo is WWE now. Of course, she was in NXT. It didn't work out when she was in NXT, and that was under Triple H. But we have seen that Triple H, now that he's in charge of the main roster, now that he's in charge of creative and talent relations, if Deonna Purrazzo became a free agent, I would 1,000,000% expect that she'd get a phone call from Triple H to say, hey, do you want to come back to WWE? Forget about NXT, come straight to the main roster. WWE's women's division is very, very, very strong. Triple H is a big proponent of women's wrestling. The women's revolution was spearheaded within NXT with the guidance of Triple H. He knows the talent that Deonna Purrazzo is, and I think Impact Wrestling at this point are looking at this saying, we need to tie down Deonna Purrazzo right now, whether it's utilizing that option year or re-signing her to a new deal, or she's probably going to go to WWE, and it becomes truly a fascinating story. So let me know your thoughts on Deonna Purrazzo, Chelsea Green, and all the other contract situations in Impact Wrestling in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.